Hey friends, we're here. It's another miracle. God only knows how I press this button every time. If you're feeling like scared of a singing thing that you have to do and it feels like a big hill to go up, just know that I am right there with you. I do it every day. It gets easier as you do it more often, but it's still hard to push that button. It's like, ooh, I would much rather be taking a nap right now. But I did it anyway. So you can do it too. Just goes to show. I love y'all. I'm very happy to be here. It is Tuesday. It is time for my Vocal Magic Live sessions. This series that I do where I pop on and I answer questions. I talk about pertinent things to the voice that I have to say. I have lots of things to say about the voice. I could talk about it for literally hours. And that's why I do every day. And it's my job now. So it's really nice. If you have specific things that you're wondering and you would like me to talk about, please feel free to message me anytime. Always happy to have a specific topic to talk about. But most of the time I just pop on and say what's been coming up for me in my lessons. Hey, Sam. So most of the time I just let a topic come to me, or maybe I just had a lesson right before this and I have a topic already to talk about, which is not the case today. My mind is drawing a blank. So if you have questions, please let me know. But if you don't, I would love to talk about a couple things. Number one, how do I create a practice routine for myself? Because that tends to be an issue for a lot of people, myself included. I'm not alone. I'm also one of you who's like, ooh, I didn't practice this week and I really shoulda. You're not alone, I promise. And it can be really hard to fit practice in, or to feel like you're doing a good enough job of practicing in the midst of your full-time job and social engagements and other responsibilities you have to your family and other people, and just trying to have a life. It can feel really hard to be a singer and to practice and to take some uninterrupted time to just be the singer that you are. Of course, there's the things that we all do, like sing in the shower or sing in the car. But how often do you ever give yourself the gift? And I love framing it that way. It is really, truly a gift to yourself to have time where you just close the door to your room and sing and learn more about your voice, and not have all the pressure of getting it right the first or fifth or 18th time, because that is something I don't know hardly any singers that are not working professionals that do that. And I think honestly that is probably the big difference between people who are working professional singers and people who are not. Like, they treat it like a job. I was at a songwriting camp a couple weeks ago, and a thing that kept popping up from the mentors who are professionals doing music full time, who kept saying, like, look, if you want this to be your job, you got to treat it like a job. You got to do it every day. You got to show up for your craft. You got to show up for your art, your songs, your voice. You have to be doing the thing even when you're not getting paid, and that is really hard to do. And it's not something that I take for granted, that I have been able to give myself that, right? Like, I don't have any children and I work for myself now. But even when I didn't, I heard that advice and I was like, oh, I need to make time, right? It's not the hustle mindset that's like, I'm going to do all the things, I'm going to hustle forever and ever, and I'm just going to be Ariana Grande in a year. That's not how this work happens. It is the small changes that you make every day by finding the moments that you can give to your singer self, that you can take up space as a singer, that you can say, look, I know I have to do the dishes, but I'm going to take 5 minutes first to sing because I can do the dishes later, but I know I'm not going to have the energy to sing later. So I think a lot of this is reframing how you think about practice. A lot of it is noticing when your gremlin comes in and is like, oh, but you don't have an hour, you don't have even half an hour to do this. It's not going to be good. So might as well just do something else instead, And that is so easy to listen to that voice. It's so easy. I do it all the time. But when we are trying to make singing a bigger part of your life, look, even if you don't want to be a professional musician, if you don't want to do anything close to that, if you just want to sing more and sing better and sing more freely, practice is a huge part of that anyway. And you have to treat it like that is an important part of your life, So even if you're not treating it like it's a job, if you don't need it to be your job, at least treat it like it's a part-time job, At least treat it like it's a pet that you have to take care of twice a day, at the very least. Like, you have to walk your dog. You have to feed your dog. Feed your singer self. That might be a really stupid analogy, but it's true. Like, most of the time your animals are totally fine on their own. They just want to be loved. They want to be played with, but they need to take a walk and they need to eat and they need to drink water. So if at the very least you give your singer self those same 5 to 15 minutes that you give your dog every day, you're going to be golden. I tell you, you're going to be great. If you think about it in this different way, instead of like, oh, it's a chore that I have to do, and every time I go to sing, I mess up and it just feels gross, then of course you're going to be down on yourself and practicing is not going to be fun, right? But if you start to change how you think about it, instead of a chore, and instead you're giving someone else a gift, you're giving your singer self a gift, you're taking your dog for a walk, you're feeding your pet parrot, whatever, it starts to become more enjoyable because we love to give. It makes us feel good to give, right? But we feel selfish when we take time for ourselves. So if you start to think of yourself, your singer self, as another person that needs love too, it can really change how you think of practicing and how you're showing up for your music, because then it's easy to give. Like, of course I'm going to give to this other person. They deserve it, right? Why don't we ever think of ourselves that way? We're just thinking, oh, I can't possibly take 10 minutes to sing. I can't possibly, enjoy music for 5 minutes because then I'm not being productive enough. Or I should be taking out the trash, or I should be doing this other thing for my roommate. But honestly, like, we spend so much time on these other people and we don't do it for ourselves because we feel like we're selfish. So if you think of yourself as another person or a pet to take care of, it's so much easier to do it. So if you can, maybe put something up on your wall that's like, hey, feed your singer self today, or something like that. Have you fed your dog today, or something like that? Even if you don't have a dog, you'll now know what it means. Let me know in the chat, how do you feel about practicing? What is stopping you from doing the practice that you want? What does it look like for you? What goes through your head? What's the gremlin voice that's like, ooh, you probably should not practice, right? For me, it's almost always a perfection thing because I feel like I only have 10 minutes. It's not going to go perfectly. I don't know the song hardly at all. But in reality, that's like why we're practicing, right? Because it's not perfect yet, because I don't know the song. That's why I'm taking time to do that. It's like when I was a yoga teacher, people used to come to me and they'd be like, oh, you teach yoga? That's so cool. I could never do yoga. I'm not flexible enough. Girl, that's why you come to yoga. That's why you do yoga. And the hard part is that most people are not very good at sitting in the gross feeling that is sucking. We are so bad as humans at sitting in the I suck place. We hate it so much. And that's why people shy away from practice, I think. That's why I shy away from practice for sure, because I don't like the feeling of not being good at something. And that's the whole idea behind practicing, is sucking, and then you work towards getting better, So you have to practice. Like, you do hard things all the time, right? If you've had a kid, you change their diapers for 4 years. That's hard. But you did it for them, right? Because they can't be sitting in poop all day. So it's really important that you do the same for yourself. You do the hard thing. You sit in the muck, the literal shit, and you say, this is not a good feeling, but this is why I'm here. so that I can grow and that I can change how I think about this. And every time I show up and I sit in this muck and this painful feeling, I get better at sitting in it and it becomes less hard and less painful. Yay, thank you for being here. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate you being here. Brian says, I think it's just getting started. Once I start, I can keep going, but it's starting that makes me be like, I'll try later. Totally feel ya. It's the momentum thing, right? Once you get in the car, you can go, but it's actually going and out of your house and getting in the car. That is the hard part. It's totally a thing that you kind of have to learn. Oh, I just got a brain hack right now, right? Like, I know I should be practicing. I know I want to practice, but something is calling me in another direction, right? And it's very easy to heed that call and to go clean your toilet or something ridiculous. That's what I do. I clean things instead of do the thing that I don't want to do, which is weird because my house is not very clean. So in those instances, I want you to start thinking of this as like, oh, it's a friend I got to go visit, or it's my cat I got to go feed or something. So you start thinking of it as a person that deserves time and space. I'm going to go visit my best friend, the singer version of me. I'm going to go hang out with her for 15 minutes, because once you start, you'll be like, oh my God, I love you. You're the best. Why don't I hang out with you more often? But in most instances, we're like, oh, that feels selfish. That feels unproductive. That feels too hard. Much rather just sit here. It's the inertia of the thing, you know. Once you get up and move, the car's moving. But we don't move for ourselves very often. So try out the separate person thing. See if that helps. But anyway, I think I've talked about this before, but like a year and a half ago, I did this challenge. That was the 5 and 5 practice challenge. And I really want to do it again. And I don't know why I haven't. It was really fun. We met every day for 7 days and we practiced together. I gave you a couple little tips here and there about warm-up specific to whatever skill you're working on. And it's literally just 15 minutes. This is my favorite way to think about the actual practice structure, because so many of us show up and we maybe do a little warm-up, maybe, and then we sing the song and we're like, oh, okay, that part didn't go so well, so we do the song again and hope that part goes better. And that's practice. Not the most efficient, not the worst, because you're actually practicing. I'd much rather you practice like that than not at all. But I think the thing that most people get hung up on is they just do the song, and then the parts that they suck at, they're like, okay, I'll just not do that and it'll be better the next time. But we don't spend time looking at why that happened, why it didn't go as planned, and how to adjust it for the future. Again, because we don't like to sit in the muck, right? We don't like to hang out in the gross feeling things, the things that you're not good at. So, for example, if you're working on a song and there's this big run in it, I was doing this with a student today, there's a big run in it, and you thought you have the run worked out, and then you just do the song a couple times and you're like, I don't like that song, how that came out. There's something weird about it. But then you just do the song over and over again and you don't ever ask why. It's just gonna solidify like that. It's gonna solidify in the way you don't want it to sound if you just do it over and over again without digging deep into it. So my 5 and 5 practice strategy is as follows. 5 minutes, warm up. And you don't do all the warm-ups ever. You just, if you've been talking, you probably only need 5 minutes of warm-up. If you have a job where you talk, great. If you don't have a job where you talk, maybe do a little longer. If it's up to you. But really, most of us, unless we're singing Defying Gravity or something, we don't need huge amounts of warm-up. So 5 minutes of warm-up. Ideally, you want it to be related to the skill that you're working on. So if you're working on runs, maybe you do a nice easy lip trill, and then maybe you do one that is specifically like a pentatonic scale to work on the specific scales that show up in runs very often. So I have one in my warm-up YouTube, which I don't remember if it's in my bio right now, but if you want it, just message me and I'll send it to you. And so maybe you're doing a warm-up related to riffs and runs and scales, pentatonic scales. And then the next 5 minutes is practicing that skill. So you're not going to do the whole song. You're not going to touch the verse that feels fine. You're not going to touch the bridge if it feels okay. You're just going to do that one chorus with that run in it, right? So maybe the line before and then the one with the run. And you slow it the heck down. You don't try and do it up to tempo. You don't try and do it in context yet. You take it one note at a time and see, where am I getting tripped up? Where am I squeezing too hard? Where is the register change not flowing very well? And can I change that up so it feels easier for me? Maybe I add an extra breath here and there because I'm running out of breath. Maybe that's why I'm struggling. There's so many reasons, but if we don't look at it, if we don't dissect it, we don't know. We don't know how to change it, and we just do it over and over again, and we solidify the bad habits. So I think it's really important to let go of the need to do the whole song every time you practice. Isolate the struggle points. Isolate the skill that you want to build. Listening to my voice is something I don't like to do. I do have a professor job, so my voice needs warm up. Totally. I totally get that. So just like 10-15 minute warm up can be really good. If you want my warm ups, just message me and I'll send you the link to them. And that's most humans, honestly. Most humans don't like to listen to our own voices. But that's something that this gremlin work that I talk about is really helpful for. A lot of the reason we don't like our voices is because somebody told us once that you had a nasally voice or something. Somebody told us once that you shouldn't sing because you're off pitch. That's something that amalgamates into this gremlin that sits on your shoulder and repeats those things all day long when you go to sing. And so if we can separate from that as well, just like we separate from the singer self to give ourselves something, if we separate from the gremlin, it can really help you not listen to it. If you treat it more like a bully and a dumb idiot that you don't have to listen to, that can be really helpful as well. All of those things, totally, all the more evidence that it's just the gremlin voice in your head, and it's not something that you have to actually give any weight within yourself. So once you notice those voices start to come in, especially when you're practicing, you have to be the one that's like, okay, I see you, gremlin, and I don't have to listen to you. I don't need your opinion right now. You can wait outside, right? It's always going to come back. Yeah, I think it's really important. I know there's no wrong way to do it. I prefer to sing the song first, find out where the problem is, and then do the exercise for those issues, and then go back to the song. Totally. Yeah, I think that's a great strategy, Brian. I think how most people do it is not do the middle part. They just sing the whole song, knows what the problem is, tell themselves they suck, do it again, and they don't fix anything. You know, they just do the song over and over again, and that's not helpful. But the way you're doing it is great because it's helpful to know where your issue is on that day, because it can change from day to day, and then go back to the song. But not everybody has like the half an hour or an hour that takes to do that whole process. So that's why if you're short on time, this is why I'm doing this 5-5-5 thing. Of course, this can be expanded into 30 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever you want, whatever feels good for you. Repeat the same part I'm struggling with. Yeah, that's great. Gremlin's name is Otis. I love that. Yes, that's family members is where this stuff comes from. Y'all, I don't know if you know, but from 0 to 6, everything that you take in from those ages sticks with you forever. It's like hardwired into your body. So yeah, it's really, those things are things you need to look at and say, oh my gosh, I've been believing this voice as if it's my own, as if it's the truth forever for my whole life. And I don't have to do that anymore. I can just treat it like it's a little gremlin who's a pain in the butt and just toss him out the window. He's going to come back, but I can just have a little more gremlin free time because I know I don't have to believe that, you know? It's very interesting to start to look at that stuff, and highly recommend journaling about who your gremlin is. That was our topic in Enchanted Voice this week. Do some research, you know, go back in your memories and say, oh my God, that person told me that person told me that about my voice. And it can be positive too. Like I was always the person the kid who was like semi-okay at music, and I would be the one who has to like perform for when we had company over, you know, and that's a lot of pressure in the other direction. And that it all comes together. It's like, you have to be the best. You can't mess up. You suck. You are not an alto. You are not a soprano, blah, 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 all that stuff. So just looking at that can open up a lot of doors for you when you're practicing. and you start to hear that voice when you try and hit that run, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's just Otis. Who needs him? He's like a broken record in my head. He's always there. I don't have to actually pay attention to that anymore. That's always there. It's like so boring, right? And then you go back and do the run and you're like, oh, okay, without Otis in my head telling me I suck, I can do so much more, right? It's amazing. And then the last 5 minutes of this 5-5-5 practice routine is play. And I think this is something that so many of us forget about as well. So many of us are so serious, and we think we have to get it right and we have to get it perfect. So even after we try these skills and we go back into the song and we try it, if it's not perfect, like the first couple times, we are so harsh on ourselves and we give up. So the thing I want you to remember to bring into your practice routine is play and have fun with it, because this is why we sing in the first place, because we enjoy it. It feels good. It's a joyful feeling. It's fun. And if it's all about getting it perfect and nailing it all the time, of course your brain is going to try and avoid practicing because it's not a fun thing, right? We're just little kids on the inside, and if it's not fun, we're not going to want to do it, So treat it like you're, adding a little bit of chocolate in the smoothie, add a little bit of zucchini in your brownies, or however you want to think about it. You have to have the fun stuff about music. So maybe your play looks like you take that run that you're doing and you slow it down, and then you speed it back up and you let it be messy. And then you just take 5 minutes and go, okay, I'm just going to riff on this and I'm going to make stuff up. I'm going to try it a couple times and I'm not going to worry about it being perfect, because I know that that is just causing more tightness and more stiffness in my body and in my voice. So I think it's very important. I think it's very important to take all these things into consideration, because we're just learning about how our brains work, and knowing so much of how our brains do what they do and what's stopping them is gonna make you practice more efficiently. You're gonna see more growth when you know your own brain better, when you show up with this knowledge, with these tools, instead of just saying, I don't know why I suck so much, or I don't know why I didn't practice. I didn't want to, so I didn't. As adults, we now know so much more about the brain. We can look into that and we can change things. That's the greatest part about our human bodies and our brains and our voices. Everything is malleable. Everything is changeable. Everything is flowy. We can make these changes. It's absolutely possible, because I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in my friends. I've seen it in all of my students. Every single one of my students who shows up and does this work has improved in 3 months or less. And then if you keep going, you keep improving. You keep doing so much more, and you see breakthroughs, and you keep seeing things show up in your voice that you never ever thought you could do before. If you show up and you say yes to yourself, to your singer self, a couple times a week. Doesn't even have to be every day. I know life is crazy busy. It's all good. So hopefully this helps. If you're a person that's struggling with practicing or singing, look into why. What feels gross about it, and why are you avoiding sitting in the gross? And can you practice sitting in the gross feeling a little bit every couple days? And instead of listening to that voice that says you're terrible, or judging every time you mess up, how can we turn it more into a playground, right? I call it the sandbox time. Give yourself some time in your sandbox to just make stuff. Let weird noises outside of your body. It doesn't have to live in the world forever, but you do have to have that play in order to grow, in order to do the things that you want to do, in order to build the skills that you're looking to build. Skill building doesn't come from rigidness. It doesn't come from sticking to perfect all the time, because you're not allowing yourself to go outside of your box if you don't do that. Yeah, totally. Yep. If you're not showing up for your singer self, you're not gonna be the singer you want to be, because you're the only one that is gonna show up for you. If you're waiting on somebody else to show up for you, you're gonna be waiting forever. so do it. Yeah, will you send me a message and remind me to send you those warm-ups, because I will do that. Maintaining range. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I'm going to save that for next week, but I will write it down. So if you show up next week, I'll talk about expanding your range. But mostly, this is a great way to do it. Just practice. Do some warm-ups. Start playing with where you feel like your bottom end of your singing voice is, where you feel like your top end of your chest voice is, where you feel like the top end of your head voice is, and hang out there more often. The more you hang out up there, the more stretchy it will be, the more loose those muscles will be able to get, the more easy your body will feel about being in those places. So that's honestly, just practice being in those extremes and you will start to naturally expand your range. I started to try and expand my range on the low end because I'm a soprano most of the time. And all it took was like a month or two of every day singing at the lowest end of my range and seeing if I could add another note. If not, that's cool. I'm stretching. The more you stretch, the more you'll start to find flexibility here and there. You'd be surprised. That's all I have to say about that. But maybe I'll talk more about that next week. Anyway, any other questions before I go? I didn't know I was going to talk about this today, but I think it's really important because everybody's so busy right now. Literally everybody I talk to is the busiest ever. Okay. Yes, I will. Don't worry. In Enchanted, we're going to talk more about that, Brian. Like the next 2 weeks, we're going to get more into breathing. But yes, absolutely. Talk about breathing. Anyway, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up for yourself and for me and asking questions and sharing your heart and your soul. And I am so grateful for all of you. What's coming up next for me is a little bit of rest because I have a great Enchanted Voice program. I'm going to keep showing up for them. If you're interested in that, I'm going to probably open up the doors again in another month or two, but it will be at a new price point. But that will be something I hope to open up ongoing, evergreen, but I haven't decided that yet. Also, in the next couple months, if you've done Vocal Magic with me, I'm going to be doing a Vocal Magic level 2. So if that is exciting to you, let me know. And let me know what kind of topics you would love to see. That will be for people who have done Vocal Magic 1 with me or who have done like at least 6 months of privates with me, just so I know that they've covered all the basics. But yeah, otherwise, I'm just still teaching. I'm writing a lot of songs. Mostly going to be focusing a lot on that and walking the walk with you guys. My own songwriting and singing career, but doing a lot of really cool, exciting things, and I cannot wait to share more songs. I released a song last Friday. If you want to go listen to it, it's called No Matter What, by Frank Iva. It's not under my profile. It's because I'm the featured on it. But yeah, go listen. Let me know what you think. It's a big trailery, epic pop ballad thing. It's very different for me, but it's fun. Anyway, thank you for being here. I love you so much, and I'll see you soon.